And yet another move by Gavin Newsom to mimic President Trump. This time he's going after colleges and one in his own state. We're going to get to that story and more. But first, if you're part of the 72.9% of people who are watching who have not yet subscribed to keep up to date on all California politics, because that's what we discuss here is California politics and California political news, make sure you please do. Let's get into that first story right away.
Well, the White House is demanding 9 universities commit to President Donald Trump's priorities in exchange for better access to federal funding. The document is called the Compact for Academic Excellence. It encourages the universities to adopt the White House's vision and asks them to accept the government's priorities on admissions, women's sports, and free speech, among other topics. According to the letter, signing on would give universities, quote, multiple positive benefits, including substantial and meaningful federal grants. The letter calls it a proactive effort as the administration continues to investigate alleged civil rights violations. It also asks colleges to stop considering race, gender, and other demographics in the admissions process. The proposal was sent to Dartmouth College, the University of Southern California, MIT, and Brown University, among others. It's not clear how or why those schools were selected. But I want you to take a look. Governor Gavin Newsom responded on X saying, quote, if any California university signs this radical agreement, they'll lose billions in state funding, including Cal grants, instantly. California will not bankroll schools that sell out their students, professors, researchers, and surrender academic freedom.
Gavin Newsom is now threatening USC because they received a letter from the Trump administration, basically a compact for higher integrity and higher educational learning, basically saying, we want you to get rid of the DEI, we want you to get rid of the affirmative action, like let's bring back just, the best of the best and all of that. That's basically what the Trump administration has sent this letter out to certain prestigious schools, I guess you could call them, like Dartmouth and USC and all these different schools, basically saying, like, join this compact and we'll make sure that you get your federal funding and stuff like that. So not to miss a political opportunity to try and stand up to President Trump, because I guess he thinks he's running against President Trump in 2028. But with the third term, speculation, who knows? Maybe he will run against President Trump in 2028. But regardless, Gavin Newsom, who is always doing everything to run for president, this is just another opportunity for him to act like a tough guy. So then he went out and started tweeting all this stuff, basically saying the same thing that we saw in that video, calling out the schools. This was from his press office. It says, California will not bankroll schools that sell out their students, professors, researchers, and surrender academic freedom. And then this is from his personal account. It says, California universities that bend to the will of Donald Trump and sign this insane compact will lose billions in state funding immediately. California will not bankroll schools that sign away academic freedom. So these Cal grants is specifically for USC. USC gets about $28 million that is allotted to them by the state of California to help with financial aid for students. This goes to directly benefit students. I mean, a lot of students who need financial aid. It's going to impact about 3,190 students. I use financial aid. I know there's a lot of people who use financial aid when they go to college. I used it for college and for law school. These are grants that are helping students to even attend USC in the first place. That's what the purpose of these are. And now you have Gavin Newsom, who is threatening to cut this funding to USC and pull it if they comply with what Donald Trump wants them to do with this compact or this loyalty pledge or something like that. But first off, let's say, can he even do this? Actually, it's more like it's empty threats from Gavin Newsom, because he won't be able to actually do this when he says immediately. He can't actually do it immediately because these Cal Grant funds are already signed off on in the budget for 2025 into 2026. The budget has already been approved and has been signed by Gavin Newsom himself. So that has already been kind of allocated and delineated to USC and to all these different schools that are getting Cal Grants. So for him to say that he can actually go in and immediately pull them, that's not really the case. These grants are administered by the California Student Aid Commission, and they are a little bit influenced by the governor, but they do act independently. There is really nothing he can do immediately. The budget is signed into law. You can't go back into the budget and start changing things around because you're the governor and say you want to immediately pull those funds. It would potentially be opening him up for a lot of lawsuits because they're expecting that money. So when he says stuff like immediately, it's not actually going to be immediately. There's really little that Gavin Newsom can do. But who's surprised at the fact that Gavin Newsom is more empty threats and stuff like that? Also, USC is a private institution, meaning that he doesn't have as much control as the governor to kind of lean on these institutions, such as like a UC or a Cal State or something like that. But I also want to talk more about what these Cal grants go to support. And this is what Gavin Newsom is really doing, is he's punishing students who need this money to go to USC. So I guess Gavin Newsom's fine with hurting students in his own state. Basically like the same thing with Prop 50. He's fine with disenfranchising his own voters to get back at Trump, and he's fine with hurting students at USC just to get back at Trump. Because at the expense of Trump, normal everyday Californians are expendable when it comes to Gavin Newsom running for president and trying to get back at Trump. That's all he really cares about. He doesn't care the human cost or anything like that he leaves in his wake. He just cares about increasing his political stature and his political profile. So Cal grants A, B, and C are needs-based awards primarily for California residents with financial need, determined by factors like family income, assets, and household size. For example, in 2024, Cal Grant A and B income ceilings were approximately $123,100 for a family of four, adjusted annually. So that's the threshold if you want to apply for financial aid. But awards prioritize students well below this threshold, often from families earning less than $60,000 annually. Again, it's to help those lower income students who do qualify go to USC and who need the financial aid to get, to pay for things. Now, across California, I want to talk about this as well, because for someone as progressive and as woke and kind of says he's like this righteous person who believes in the rights of protecting those who are, lower income, the minorities and stuff like that, this would directly impact those students of different minority backgrounds. So this would end up hurting a lot of students who come from minority backgrounds. In 2022 and 2023, it was reported that 64% of Cal Grant recipients statewide identified as Hispanic, Black and African American, Asian, or other non-white groups, with Hispanic and Latino students comprising the largest share, around 40%. Black students make up about 8%, Asian students about 10%. So again, this is him on one hand talking out one side of his mouth about ICE and all that stuff and protecting those individuals, but when it comes to Hispanic individuals who want to go to USC and need the financial aid to pay for going to USC, he's fine with pulling the funds for stuff like that, because again, this is all just to get back at Trump. This has nothing to do with actually helping students or doing something. But I think the real hypocrisy here is when Gavin Newsom starts to do these things that he criticizes for Trump for, it looks like he's an ultimate hypocrite. Now, this is Gavin Newsom, the guy who always says, reach out with an open hand and not a closed fist. This is Mr. Gavin Newsom, a part of the party that is always, when they go low, we go high, stuff like that. So they always say they're above it all and that they have integrity and morals and stuff like that. But when it comes to getting down in the dirt, I guess Gavin Newsom has no problem punishing students in his own state. And this was what he had said previously about Trump doing what he's doing with federal funds and schools and colleges and stuff like that. He had blasted UCLA, basically calling out what President Trump is doing as extortion to get them to do what he wants them to do. So now he's actually flipped the script, and he's now threatening USC and saying, don't comply with President Trump and don't sign on to this stuff. Otherwise, I'm going to hold state funds from you, although he can't do it immediately, like he said. I'm going to threaten and withhold funds from you. I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I called out President Trump for numerous times and called it extortion, blackmail, and all of that stuff. So the hypocrisy, I guess, knows no bounds with Gavin Newsom. Of it's bad when Donald Trump does it, but when he does it, it's a righteous thing. So let me know what you think in the comments. Is this just more hypocrisy from Gavin Newsom, who is going to end up punishing his own Californian students who are here, who want to, go to USC and need the financial aid to do so, and then end up hurting those minorities that he pretends that he stands up for? In the end, let me know in the comments what you think. And also, if you enjoy this type of political commentary, we do have a weekly podcast every Tuesday at 8 p.m. live on YouTube. It's live stream, but you can also download it on Apple, Google, Spotify, basically anywhere that you listen to audio podcasts. If you want to listen to a long form version of what we talk about, you can go there. So with that, we'll see you on the next one. Later.